Okay.
I can do this for 7 minutes.
Okay.
All right. We're talking a little bit today about the red heifer, and I think it's an interesting thing, and I just wanted everybody to hear what I've taken a lot of my information from Torah Club back the second year around. So I'd like to just read some things about the red heifer. This is a statute of the law which the Lord has commanded, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel, that they bring you an unblemished red heifer, in which is no defect, on which a yoke has never been placed." Parashat Chukat tells the story of the death of the generation that perished in the wilderness, and it presents the Levitical laws of purification from contact with a dead body. The Messiah offers us hope even in death. The mysterious laws of the red heifer hint toward that hope. According to the Levitical laws of clean and unclean, contact with a corpse renders a person ceremonially unclean. I can't talk today. Simply being under the same roof as a dead body is sufficient to contract ritual impurity. Walking over a grave, whether a person knows he's done it or not, makes a person unclean. The state of ritual contamination engendered by direct physical contact with a corpse is communicable and contagious. That means that a person made unclean by contact with a dead body or human remains transmits a lower level of ritual impurity to people, food, and objects that he touches. In the legal terminology of the Talmud, the sages refer to a dead body as a father of fathers of uncleanness. In other words, the dead body is the highest source of ritual impurity. Remember, being unclean is not a sin. Judaism regards attending to the dead and escorting them to burial as a great mitzvah. Ritual impurity has relevance only in regard to entering the sanctuary and handling the holy gifts and sacrifices. The Torah explains the pertinent issue. Anyone who touches a corpse, the body of a man who has died, and does not purify himself defiles the tabernacle of the Lord. That's in Numbers 19:13. God's sanctuary is supposed to be a place of life, not death. He forbids those polluted by death from entering his holy place. The sanctuary on earth reflects the true sanctuary above. Just as a person could not enter the temple on earth until he has cleansed himself from the contamination of death, a person cannot enter God's eternal habitation above until he has left his mortal flesh behind. Before a person can enter into the heavenly temple, he must transcend his mortal state. Before entering the heavenly temple, Yeshua exchanged his mortal flesh for the immortal. Ashes of the red heifer. You shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and it shall be brought outside the camp and be slaughtered in his presence. Numbers 19:3. A simple immersion in a mikvah is sufficient to cleanse a person from most forms of ritual impurity. Ritual impurity caused by contact with a human corpse, however, can be removed only by the sprinkling of the water of the ashes of the red heifer. It is a strange ritual. The priesthood mixed the ashes of a burned red heifer with large quantities of living water. The person seeking purification needed to receive a sprinkling of the ash and water mixture twice over the corpse of a 7-day purification process. The first sprinkling was applied on the 3rd day of the process. The second sprinkling was applied on the 7th day of the process. The person undergoing purification then completed the ritual by immersing himself in a mikvah. The slaughter and burning of the red heifer took place outside the camp. Ordinarily, the Almighty prohibits sacrifices made outside the sanctuary. The red heifer is an exception to the rule. The priesthood slaughtered and burned the red heifer in a ritually pure place outside the camp. In temple times, the walls of Jerusalem marked the boundaries of the camp. The priesthood burned the red heifer on the Mount of Olives outside the city walls, and directly across from the Temple Mount. They burned the bodies of the sin offerings in the same location. The writer of the book of Hebrews saw a messianic foreshadowing in the location of the burning. For the bodies of those animals whose blood is brought into the holy place by the high priest as an offering for sin are burned outside the camp. Therefore, Yeshua also, that he might sanctify the people through his own blood, suffered outside the gate. So let's go out to him outside the camp, bearing his reproach. That's in Hebrews 13:11 and 13. Like the red heifer taken outside the city to be slaughtered, Yeshua died outside Jerusalem's walls. The writer of the book of Hebrews takes the parallel even further. Just as a red heifer's sacrifice purified people from the contamination incurred by death, Yeshua's sacrifice cleanses from the contamination of sin, which leads to death. The book of Hebrews observes that if the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling those who have been defiled, sanctify for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more will the blood of Messiah spiritually cleanse a person from sin? Hebrews 9:13 and 14. These passages should alert us to watch for shadows of Messiah in the laws of the red heifer. At the same time, the reader needs to keep in mind that the book of Hebrews was giving figurative language. It does not imply that Yeshua's death concealed or replaced the ceremony of the red heifer, nor does it imply that Yeshua was literally sacrificed on the Mount of Olives opposite the Temple Mount. One red heifer ceremony provided a sufficient quantity of ash to purify the people of Israel for many years, even generations. The priests mixed only a minute amount of the ashes into a large vessel of living water to prepare the purification solution. Maimonides cites a legend that the priesthood offered a total of 9 red heifers during the days of the temple, and that the 10th one will be prepared by King Messiah. And the 9 red heifers were made from the time the mitzvah was given until the destruction of the second temple. The first one was made by Moses, our teacher. The second was made by Ezra, and 7 more were made from the time of Ezra until the destruction of the temple. King Messiah will make the 10th one. May he be revealed speedily. Amen. Why will King Messiah offer a red heifer? The Messiah will rebuild the temple and reinstate the priesthood, the sacrifices, and the worship. But he cannot do that without the sacrifice of the red heifer. Without the ashes of the red heifer, the priesthood cannot be purified, and no sacrifices or priestly functions can be carried out. No one can even enter the temple until he has received purification from the contamination of death by means of the living water mixed with the ashes of the red heifer. The sacrifice of the red heifer is the first step to restoring the temple and the Levitical worship. As Maimonides stated, Moses offered up the first red heifer, and the Messiah will offer the last one. This does not necessarily imply that the Messiah himself will carry out the ceremony. Rather, the ceremony will be conducted under his supervision. The connection between the coming of the Messiah and the sacrifice of the 10th red heifer leads to the ceremony messianic associations in traditional Jewish thoughts. The red heifer signifies the redemption. Shabbat Shalom.